So our presentation was dubbed the 2015 Findlay Area TIC results. This presentation, and along with it, our class was fundamentalized by the 414 e-commerce group here at the University of Findlay. Before we go ahead and start off, I do want to appropriate those who did participate in our research. So as I say your name, please go ahead and stand up, just so we can see who you are. So, Dan Artmeyer, Michael Bowman, Nolan Connell, Brian Flores, Ben Homsher, standing right here. He's going to be presenting along with myself, Lucas Kelley Kieffer today. Nick Kohler. JJ Markley is our third and last presenter for this talk today. Trevor Randolph, Jason Rubright, Greg Wilson, and finally, if you'd like to point your attention to the back, we have our beloved professor, Dr. Schneider. So now that I've gone ahead and went over just some names and who's presenting today, I'd like to go ahead to our first slide. First off, I'd just like to say that all data is based off the respondents and not the companies. This is something important to note because we could have more than one respondent from any individual company. And secondly, and lastly on this slide, during the year of 2015, 100 people completed the survey, which means that we're going to have one person for every 1%. Finally, on this slide, before we actually start the questions, we can see that we're going to have our question in the middle. An asterisk is if it's a question that is a choose that all apply. At the bottom left, you can see if it's a lead or follow-on question. And if the question number is in the bottom right-hand side, you can go ahead and follow along. These questions are in a packet or a folder that you got and is on your table. So if you would like to follow along, I encourage you strongly to do so. The first question that we had is that a representative of my company completed the TIC survey in 2014. This is question 1, if you're still pulling out those packets. Here, we see a general trend line. However, there's a huge spike right about here, and this is because of the 2007 survey in which we had the flood. However, we're continuing to see a downward trend for the yeses, and I'd like to encourage those who are part of the TIC and those who are not to please do ahead and take the survey. This is just this year's and seeing who has taken the survey before. 56% of you said yes, and I'd like to welcome those who have taken the survey back to us. And 44%, I'd strongly recommend to take the survey again next year, as it does help us in our research. Question 11 is our first material with the asterisk, and it's just showing yet again that as a choose it all apply. And for those who are checking off and seeing how many percentages, just to make sure we have 100%, it does add up. Question 11 is where we're at. Here we can see most businesses are using it for marketing. However, a close second and third are customer support and professional development. Question 22. The next important question, question number 22, is information security viewed as an area worth spending money on? Here we can see the majority of the respondents at 45% say yes, whatever it takes. The next part, 32%, yes enough to be illegal, 17% the bare necessities, and I'm glad to see only 5% of you say that no, information security is not worth spending money on. In 2015, we're just going to go ahead and reiterate those values if you wanted to see a pie chart or how it works at about 100%. Moving on, question 23 is the future need for computer security going to increase greatly, moderately, stay the same, or decrease? Here we can see at 48%, we're going to be increasing moderately, 37% stay the same, and 15% increase greatly. However, something to note is that in the past 11 years, we can only see 0 to 1% saying that it's only going to decrease, something that you'll find greatly beneficial in this presentation and the presentations to follow. Question 25, does your organization use systems to protect end user devices? Yet again, just to reiterate, asterisk, it's going to go over 100% because it's a choose it all to apply. Here we can see two values being at 60% at yes server-based and PC-based, and at 38% yes emails is how we protect our end user devices. That was my last question, and now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Ben, and he's going to go over how your company had an information security attack within the past year.
Thank you. For the next question, has your company had an information security attack within the past year? I would just like to note that 72% of the respondents to this question were small businesses, as being defined as less than 100 employees. And half of those that answered yes were small businesses. You can see here that 10% said that they did not know, or that they had not had, that they did not know if they had an information security attack within the past year, and 65% said that they had not. If you are the target for information security attacks, you may be at risk for being hacked. Information security experts ask the question, when will you be hacked, implying that it's not a matter of if you will be hacked, but when you will be hacked. But what kind of attack was it? And this is a choose all that apply question because you could be affected by multiple attacks. So 16 said that they had been affected by viruses. Coming in second, we had phishing at 10. Ransomware came in at 7, and all of the businesses that were affected by ransomware were small businesses of less than 30 employees. And we had 2 denial of service attacks and 2 other. Question 34, how severe was the attack? For most, coming in at 17, the severity of the attack was low. Perhaps the business was able to successfully mitigate the attack and keep the impact from affecting them very much. And then we had 5 for a medium severity of attack and 6 for the high severity of attack. Moving on, are your business connectivity needs for voice data and internet access being met cost effectively? Here we can see a gradual increase in the number of those who agree, an increase and then decrease in those who strongly agree, and a decrease and then increase in those that disagree. So what type of internet connection does your organization use? As the cost of communication technologies come down, they disperse to companies, become more available for them to use. We can see that reflected in the use of fiber optics, which has over tripled. Cellular modems has stayed about the same. Multiple T1s or greater has steadily increased, while T1 has come down. Wireless has over doubled. DSL has dropped by over half, but cable has come up some. And you may notice in the bottom left-hand corner, we still do have one business using dial-up. However, you may also remember how notoriously difficult AOL makes it to cancel their dial-up subscription, so we all may have dial-up. Moving on, is the use of mobile technology affecting your concerns about information security? Here we can see for the general trends that more people are agreeing that it is affecting their concerns of information security. However, we have one discrepancy right here in 2011. That may be due to large increase in how widespread mobile technology had become. The more people use it, the more they get used to it, the more they get comfortable with the technology, they see businesses adopting it, and it becomes less of a concern to them. They may look in the App Store and see all the different security products available and see how businesses are handling using mobile technology, become comfortable with it. So that may have been why there was that discrepancy there. For the next question, I'm going to hand it off to JJ.
Okay, so our next question is, what kind of network do you have? With the answers being wired, wireless, both, or no network at all. In the year of 2005, we saw that about 50% of them only had only wired networks, with only 25% being both. We saw that most of that dropped, or 50% of that basically dropped off and became 24% wired, while most of that went to both. And then again, it halved in 2015. And here's the overall trend line with an upward slope of both being used. Are you familiar with the Internet of Things? We saw that 19% of our businesses said yes, and 50% though said no, while 27% said they have only heard of it or didn't know much about it yet. Those who said that they were using it or were going to use it basically said that they were going to be using it for manufacturing and in environmental processes to monitor that. Now, why does your company use it, or why did their companies use it? Most of them actually weren't planning to use it, we see here. But those who were probably, according to the survey, were going to be using it for productivity or to monitor and analyze security. Here we see that according to the hype chart, which basically says over time we think that something is going to be really, really great, and then it's not as great as we thought it was, but then we start to see it level off and we actually use it more often in our day-to-day life. We see it's up here at the peak, so over the next couple of years we'll see it implemented more and we'll start using it more in our day-to-day lives. Does your organization permit personal devices on the business network? Basically, this is a BYOD, or bring your own device. We saw that 56% of our businesses said that yes, they do allow it. This does not always mean that they support it, but they do allow it. And here you see that it's up over the past couple of years. And how has your organization allowed these personal devices on the business network? We saw that most have 27% of the respondents said that they had specific use policies for this, basically saying that you can't do certain things on their network just to cover themselves in case you were to do something that you're not allowed. And lastly, we have, are you a member of the Findlay-Hancock County Chamber of Commerce? This is who the survey was actually sent out to. We saw 95% of those who did respond were part of the Chamber of Commerce, with 5% not being part of the Chamber of Commerce. And this is because they had it forwarded to them, either the paper copy or the digital copy. Are there any questions? Yes. Not me personally. Did you guys?
I guess I can talk about this one. I think with the cloud technology being available, as well as the Internet of Things being the prime highlight of what this forum is about, I was surprised that over a vast majority, at least half, said that they weren't planning on using it. And I think that hopefully after this forum talk today, that maybe they will use it. So that was one thing that I saw and most notable. Everything else stayed the same for the vast most part from the past years. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, and then we have our contact information. If you have any questions about the presentation itself, you can contact us, the presenters. If you have any questions about the data itself, you can contact either our professor, Dr. Helen Schneider, or the TIC chair, Lynn Child, who's back there. And here's our sources. Next, we will have the capstone class come up, and it's the home is where the IoT is.